This video was made possible by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, online store, or website, make it with Squarespace. Today, we'll be exploring how China transformed into a communist state despite thousands of years of dynastic rule. And as always, we'll need to wind back the clock to really understand how this process unfolded. Throughout the 17th century and up until the 19th century, the Qing dynasty loosely reigned over China, as it was plagued by regionalism and corruption. To make matters worse, European merchants arrived in China en masse during the 18th century. These Westerners arriving were driven by fiscal interests, and some would later say that it was the wave of merchants who would spell China's near ruin. Meanwhile, in Japan, things were looking up after their decisive victory over the Chinese in the Sino-Japanese War. In Richard Bernstein's work, he writes this of the conflict. Japan's major goal was the possession of Korea and Manchuria, the vast landmasses just across the sea that were stepping stones towards the even larger prize, which was China. This defeat prompted cries for reform, and after a series of failed revolts, including the 1899 Boxer Rebellion, the Qing government found itself in an even more precarious position. By 1911, the government was fully overthrown in what was called the Chun Revolution. The leaders of this revolution selected the exiled intellectual Sun Yat-sen to be China's first president in 1912. However, their territories were limited to southern China. Meanwhile, the Boy Emperor Puyi remained in power in the north. He was backed by General Yuan Shikai, who had the largest army in the region, and therefore pretty much called the shots. Thus, Sun Yat-sen won Shikai over to his side without bloodshed by offering him the presidency. From there, things didn't exactly go as planned. Yuan imposed a military dictatorship and exiled Sun Yat-sen after he formed the opposing Kuomintang, or KMT. In 1916, Yuan proclaimed himself Emperor of China, pretty much missing the point of the rebellion entirely. He quickly lost much of his support, and after his death, China was once again balkanized into regions under the control of local warlords. After Yuan died, Sun Yat-sen returned to China, and at the helm of the nationalist Kuomintang party, was able to take power and impose yet another military government in 1921. Shortly after, in 1923, they sealed cooperation with the Communist Party of China, or CPC, in exchange for assistance in ending regionalism. The CPC had been founded in the wake of the May 4th movement, which involved a series of student protests formed in opposition to the Chinese government's ineffective response to the Treaty of Versailles, which transferred what was formerly Chinese-owned land to the Japanese. The May 4th movement popularized Marxism as a radical alternative to the Kuomintang. Really, the only reason the CPC aligned itself with the KMT was so it could spread communism as it liberated each warlord state with the assistance of the much stronger KMT. In 1925, Sun Yat-sen died, leaving China in the hands of Chiang Kai-shek, who 2 years later initiated what was known as the White Terror in response to a communist plot to overthrow him. This resulted in the deaths of thousands of members of the CPC. In the aftermath, communist leaders Li Lixun and Mao Zedong began waging a guerrilla war against the Kuomintang. While this was happening, the Soviet Union, who saw the CPC as their communist allies, directed it to take a more aggressive stance against the Kuomintang. As a result, Li Lixun ordered an offensive to be carried out against the nationalists. It was a disaster and led to his replacement by a group of Chinese intellectuals called the 28 Bolsheviks. With warlords still in control of numerous regions, and the two major political factions of China in all-out war, the situation was looking worse than ever. Seeing the turmoil unfold, the shadow of Japan once again loomed over China. In 1931, they sent roughly 45,000 men to occupy Chinese Manchuria. With no troops to spare, the Kuomintang was forced to concede without resistance. Chiang now understood that he needed to defeat the CPC before China was fully invaded. To this end, Chiang assembled the largest Kuomintang army yet, and in 1934 encircled Mao's guerrilla forces stationed in the mountains. The climax of this episode was the Long March, which began when the CPC devised a near-suicidal plan to break through Chiang's encirclement and march over 6,000 miles to regroup in the north. About half of the CPC's forces were lost when crossing the Shang River, a decision which the 28 Bolsheviks shouldered responsibility for. In the wake of this debacle, Mao took control of the communists. By the time the remnants of the CPC reached their northern destination, only 10% of them were still alive, prompting Mao to launch a massive recruitment effort. Recognizing that if the Japanese invaded, both they and the Kuomintang would be destroyed, Mao sought to form yet another united front. Chiang was vehemently opposed to the offer, but his generals weren't. They took matters into their own hands, taking Chiang hostage and pressuring him to accept Mao's offer. Chiang eventually decided to accept and formed what was called the Second United Front in 1937. When Japan did invade that year, the Kuomintang proved unable to fully repulse the invaders, something which worried the Chinese people, and Mao capitalized on this discontent to recruit even more men to his cause. Furthermore, his forces did not engage those of Japan very frequently, allowing the Kuomintang to bear the brunt of the Japanese onslaught. After Japan surrendered to the Allies in 1945, the Kuomintang and CPC ended the Second United Front. It only took 1 year for the Chinese Civil War to rage on yet again. The CPC was now armed with leftover Japanese weapons and equipment, had newfound support from the populace, and faced a foe who suffered 3.2 million casualties against the Japanese, whereas the communists lost approximately 440,000. After a highly successful guerrilla campaign, both Beijing and Nanking had fallen to the communists. With the capture of these two major cities, it would not be long before Mao was victorious and the People's Republic of China was established. Chiang Kai-shek and the defeated Kuomintang government went into exile in Taiwan in 1949, which to this day still has the official name of the Republic of China. Under Mao's 30-year reign, tens of millions of people starved. Even so, it is still debated to this day whether Mao contributed to China's modernization or whether he delayed its development. Either way, the Chinese government still sees Mao as one of their founding fathers. Now back to our sponsor. Recently, Squarespace has made my life a lot easier. This website building platform offers a wide array of customizable design templates to get started with. 8 new ones have been released in this year alone. From that point, its intuitive interface and diverse toolkit allow virtually anyone to build a website. You really don't need to be computer savvy or an artist to do this stuff. But should you have any questions, the reliable customer support team is always there to provide answers. With all of this in mind, we highly recommend you use Squarespace for any website project imaginable, be it for school, work, or just for fun. Check out Squarespace and register for a free trial using squarespace.com/armchairhistorian. It's as easy as clicking the link in the description below and getting started. When you're ready to launch, use the offer code ARMCHAIR for a 10% discount on your first website or domain purchase. Thanks for watching. I'd like to thank the Armchair Historian team and my general staff on Patreon. Right now, we're in the process of training new members of the Armchair Historian team and getting the website we promised you off the ground. Stay tuned for more updates, they're coming soon. Also, be sure to check out our new video next Friday.